Assalamu alaikum, Nazreen. How are you, subscribers? Sorry for the very long delay in between this and people adjusting for me and causing problems. Anyway, so I'm adjusted light and hopefully it won't cause any problems now. Okay. Anyway, now a couple of things we'll discuss today because it's been a long time we've been together. We'll discuss why the Turkish intelligence chief postponed the visit to Pakistan to get the Taliban and Pakistan to come to an agreement. Second thing, I'm going to talk about two contradictory reports. One is kind of a India-Russia summit deal. As it concluded, it yielded no major defense deals. But undercover, IAF has a major upgrade with 300 long-range Russian missiles, R-37s. We will discuss that. And the effect of these missiles, which are hypersonic, air-to-air, BVRs, is dramatic and drastic. As we had projected previously in our videos, the PL-15 is going to win the fight. Now, with this R-37M missile, which India has achieved, we'll discuss this also. Also, in addition, we'll discuss a couple of other good things. About 100 Baloch militants surrendered in Dera Bukti. Okay, they do that every now and then, but this time it came with a big fish also. We'll discuss that too. Another thing, Taliban who don't know PLA, what are they doing? We don't know where they come from. We don't know who they are. They caught red-handed digging a tunnel near Chaman. So we'll discuss that in a little detail, what happened there. Another report again has come up. China is ready to transfer the 300 to 400 kilometer PL-17 and J-35s. Unfortunately, we can't simply get quite a handle on this because our people, when we ask Pakistani, oh really, J-35? Our defense department doesn't have heard of it, but I think they've heard of it. But anyway, so our pilots are training in China. So looks like there is strong possibility of getting these J-35s here. And we'll discuss why it is getting critical now. Okay. Third, another item we'll discuss, which is very, very earth-shattering. US has had a new national security policy, and it's no longer containment of China. They're talking of a pair power. So it is a G2. US is now talking about a G2 meetings, which is meeting between two great powers. Anyway, we'll discuss that too. And it's very interesting, this one. This means India is no longer the part of their cog of containment of China. So that whole game is out of the window. Now, a lot of people will have a hard time getting their head around that. We'll discuss that too. What does that mean? Okay. Pakistan CDF, Chief of Defense Staff, or Field Marshal, has given explicit warnings to both India and Afghanistan. And we'll say, it'll define exactly what we're going to do. And we will discuss that too. I'm sorry it's going to be a little bit longer one, but please bear with me because it's very important news, so you know it. A couple of interesting things. Ex-CIA officer reveals that Pakistan has a better spy network in India than India has. And we'll discuss that, what that is. Interesting. And last, Pakistan has said, if the Afghans don't behave, we have a right of self-defense. We'll discuss that too. Now, we get into the meat of the whole story. Why has Turkish intelligence chief left and not come here as yet? What the Turks say is a lack of cooperation from the Taliban regime. Primary reason of the postponement. The long-awaited high-level delegation from Turkey was expected to mediate between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Why is that important? Turkey represents the rest of the population in Afghanistan, with a total population of 42 million, 16 million are Pashtuns. The rest of the population, which is over 26 to 30 million, is non-Pashtun, which are Tajiks, Turkic, Uzbeks. And Turkey is closely aligned culturally with those people, just like we, as our Pashtuns, are aligned culturally closer to the Afghan side. And we saw that, how we hosted them for almost 40 years. Unfortunately, they don't respond with loyalty, they respond with treachery, which is not bad, good. In this, a couple of things was done, and that is the Turks felt that the Afghan Taliban are not serious about the whole issue, okay? And they don't want to waste their time. So initially they thought they could negotiate something, but it's not. Apparently Pakistan is very clear what they want. End to the TTP support from Afghanistan. Handing over of the TTP criminals, not shoving across the border with guns and mortars and RPGs, but handing them over as criminals. They're not guests. These people who they say are guests, and then they come across the border and shoot up the neighbor. I mean, if your neighbor has a guest and he decides to come and throw bombs in your area, in your house, how do you respond to it? Only one way. You take the fight to them, and that's what we're going to discuss what the Chief of Defense Staff is saying. Secondly, a closure of the border. They said, the spokesman stressed, the indefinite border closure must be viewed within the wider context of national security imperatives than punitive measure alone. What they're saying is, border बंद हुआ तो ये काफी हद तक insurgency के नीचे आएगी, because with the cross-border coming and going of trade and smuggling and all that stuff which is going on in between all these kira makaras from TTP coming, the total number of people these people are is about 6,000. But 6,000 running around in the countryside and the roads and all can do a lot of damage. So, and he says the limited opening on Torkham border is only for humanitarian reasons, as the UN had asked for. So that's what that one entails. Okay. Second thing, Putin just made a trip to India. So a lot of analysts expected Putin and India and those guys to have huge defense deals, especially after Operation Sindoor. Unfortunately, there was no big ticket item discussed in that meeting. And discussion mostly co-development, co-production of the stealth jet, upgrades in the air defense network S-400, procurement signed for. There was no procurement signed for Su-57s or air defense S-500. Could be a reason for it. However, what we found out is IAF, not due to their meeting or their communique from the bilateral meeting or the Putin visit, but besides that, offline, India, out of the radar, has negotiated a major upgrade with 300 long-range R-37 Russian missiles. This is for the Indian fleet, the S-30 Mk1. This will restore, according to Indians, their BVR advantage over Pakistan. And I mean, the advantage which we had on PL-15s is now going to shift to India. Now, what is this? The 300 long-range R-37 missiles have a huge defense deal, bring around 300 long-range missiles to India. This is to boost Indian air power and get them to get ahead of the PAF. Anyway, so we did a good presentation and we shot a few of them down. We did not shoot them helter-skelter, but we gave them a breather, and now they're coming back with a response. Indian Air Force had been pushing this deal after learning many hard lessons during Operation Sindoor in May of 2025. During that fight, Indian pilots flying SQ-MK-1s often struggled against Pakistan Air Force J-10CE fighters that carry the PL-15 missiles. Remember in our video previously, we had projected it 6 months earlier than Sindhu that this PL-15 is going to win the fight, is going to give us the air dominance. Not air superiority, dominance. That's what happened. Indians went to sleep for 2 weeks. The Air Force didn't wake up. PL-15, effectively, they're saying, analysts, 180 to 200 kilometers. And Pakistan, big jet advantage. However, it's more like 300 if it's not the export version. Now, what's the new is known as AA-13 X-head. The Western name for this one is X-head. Changes the picture in a big way. This missile can travel 300 kilometers, far beyond PL-15, maybe, but definitely equal to or greater than PL-15. They can spot, Indian pilots can spot, target, and fire long before Pakistan gets a chance to shoot back. The Air Force believes this will give India a first look, first shot, first kill advantage in air battles. Logical conclusion. Now, the second thing I want to tell you in this one is this R-37M, which is called the AA-13 X-head, is a hypersonic BVR. Our PL-15 is not hypersonic. So in this case, when they fire it, there is no escape zone. Our advantage of electronic warfare may not be there at all. Before we know it, boom. They call this R-37 the AWACS killer. So most of our AWACS and SAB electronic warfare machines, and the Turkish, they may be full targets for this missile. And if we get blinded that way, then we may have a lot more issues there. They can go after refueler tanks, so that limits the ability of our Air Force to stay in the air. So it looks like Indians are coming in a big way, and Russians are supporting them in a big way. And Russians knowing fully well who China is supporting. So this is kind of a very, very, very interesting. Now, these same missiles can be used against China. This one carries a 16-kilogram explosive warhead and uses the Agat 9B 1388 active radar seeker for very accurate targeting. It can also chase down cruise missiles that are hard to spot. Not only it can shoot down enemy planes, it can also shoot down our cruise missiles. Okay. Now, a lot of guys will say, oh, they can't do it because it's not loud. No. The Indians expect the missile to fit smoothly in the IF S-30 Mk1s because it's all approved for the Russian Su-30 SM, very similar aircraft. They don't need to change structure. They only need to add small software upgrades to the mission computer and the N011M bar radar. After the jets can use a missile seeker and high or lofted flight path. So they just think it's an upgrade of software and they're off to go. So that means Indians are on target to come after us by about March, April. So all the rest of their 60 billion hardware, 20 or so from Israel of electronic warfare and the rest, they're all going to come to fruition in the March-April timeframe. The Indian SQ-MK1 will carry the missiles in hidden spots under the fuselage. So they're trying to reduce the radar coverage, and each jet can hold up to 2 R-37M. This location keeps the wing pylons free so pilot can load the missiles like the R-77 and Astra Mk1 or Mk the rest. So, in rounding it up with this, And with the Pakistan only J-10CEs and the PL-15s, the Indians will have an advantage in range. The Indians will have an advantage in speed, and there will be no escape zone for the Pakistani pilots. Now, here the issue gets into what the reports are regarding China giving us the PL-15, PL-17, and the J-35s. It's imperative we get them before March or April. J-35 gives us the ability to hit Indian radars and airfields inside India without being targeted by the S-400 or S-500 ground to air. The PL-17 is a 400-kilometer range missile, and we need that to take out the Su-30s who fire the 300-kilometer or the long-range RX missile, Russian missile. It's imperative that we have these. If we don't have it, we're going to be fighting it on the back foot. PL-17 is an interim. The other one the Chinese have, now remember, the PL-17 is not a hypersonic. The Indian BVR is a hypersonic missile. Still a slim advantage, but I think our Air Force can do wonders with a small advantage. But it'll be a pretty much upfront fight. It won't be like the last time we walked over them. And I think this time we'll have to work harder and smarter. That really depends upon Victor Gao of the Chinese side. Is very specific about what he can bring to the party. The Chinese will give us everything. Now it depends upon their AWACS KJ-500s. It'll depend upon the PL-17s they give us and the PL-XX. Now, if they ever give us a PL-21, the 1,500-kilometer one, then the game is really over for the Indians. But let's see what happens. And but the J-35s are essential for us to engage these guys before they shoot at us. We'll have to go deep down, intercept these planes, shoot them out of the sky, shoot them on the ground, and completely obliterate them. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty much upfront open game for the Indians as well. And then the fight can go either way. If we don't have the J-35 and we don't have the PL-15s, PL-17s, we're going to be fighting on a back foot. So that's enough of that. Now, let's talk one other thing, which is over 100 militants, Buktis, Indira Bukti surrendered. One big interesting thing is, for the first time, Mr. Bramdag Bukti was in them. I mean, the guy running around in Switzerland and enjoying the Alps and this and that. Somehow or the other, this guy got caught and laid on the arms with the rest of the fighters. This is a major breakthrough. Apparently, they ran out of food or whatever else, and more than 100 armed fighters belonging to the band Balochistan Republic, including the senior commander Bramdar Bukti, and the prominent tribal leader Vadera Noor Ali Chakrani, formally surrendered to the Pakistan authorities in Sui, Dera Bukti, on Thursday. They laid down their arms in front of senior civil and military officials, took an oath of allegiance to the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, renounced violence, and worked for the stability and development of the province. Well, let's hope all goes well on that one. Another thing, our friends the Taliban, who don't see BLA, oh my God, no, we don't. They've been caught red-handed building a tunnel to smuggle BLA people. The security forces fought a major infiltration attempt through the underground passage. Pakistan security forces on Thursday successfully thwarted a sophisticated infiltration attempt by the Afghan Taliban, who had excavated a tunnel below Chaman border, crossing to facilitate entry of Balochistan BLA operatives into Pakistan territory. According to well-placed sources, our intelligence received specific information last week about unusual excavation activity on the Afghan side of the Friendship Gate at Chaman. Interesting. On the other side of the Friendship Gate, They're digging a tunnel, send people in to kill Pakistanis. Great friendship at the Chaman. Frontier Corps intensified surveillance, discovered 60-foot-long tunnel originating from Spin Boldak district in Afghanistan, extending several meters into Balochistan. Friendship Gate. And this probably was a friendship tunnel. Anyway. Tunnel around 3 feet in diameter and width was professionally constructed with wood supports, ventilation pipes, indicating substantial planning and resources. Sources revealed that the passage was intended to smuggle BLA militants and weapons into Pakistan to carry out terrorist activity in Pakistan. Detection, we sealed the thing and filled it with concrete after documenting the structures. Closest detection team also swept the area to ensure no additional threats remain. There were no casualties, so all that went well. And last we'll discuss what our army chief. Before we go that far, let's talk about what USA's national security policy is. USA finally declared the end of the unipolar domain where USA was the only superpower. Now they're talking of G2, two superpowers. Peter Hegseth delivered a statement and a speech at the Reagan National Defense Forum held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California. Those who've been to California, they know where the Simi Valley Library is for Ronald Reagan. Very, very historic place. Analysis suggests Trump administration has shifted from viewing China solely as a containment target to recognizing it as a peer competitor on par with the US, potentially formalizing a G2 US-China framework. So instead of the G7s and all that stuff, which is going on with the Europeans, now USA is going to focus on a G2, which is with China. It's also a recognition that Europeans are geopolitically becoming irrelevant. It also says that the containment of China, the bulk walk India, is basically a story which is finished. Now, please get around, people. In this way, America and China are not going to conflict with each other directly. The Defense Department speech held in the library on the 6th stated, the unipolar system that followed the Cold War has ended. The unipolar system that followed the Cold War has ended. So rest in peace, so era post-World War II, after the fall of the Soviet Union is finished. US now seeks a stable peace, fair trade, and a relationship of mutual respect with China. So now we are in the G2, we're going to be friendly, respectful, and trade. And that's what China has been saying all along. Now they also say, we do not seek to dominate China, not constrain its growth. So apparently they're saying their resistance to CPAC is being dropped. So US is not going to directly try and stop the CPAC route. Now they're going to let China will not constrain its growth, which is through the CPAC route through Pakistan. The US now pursues a balance of power, not dominance. And our goal is to ensure China does not get capability to overwhelm US or its allies. What they're saying is they want to give enough help to our allies that without firing a shot, China doesn't conquer them. But I think they may have given up on Taiwan. But let's see how this rolls out. Jonathan Chin, a formerly National Security Council Senior Director for China, assessed the national security staffing, stating that there is much in which China would welcome. If US shifts the strategy focused to Central and South America, China would gain more space in Asia. Now that means good for Pakistan also. This trend is reflected in recent remarks of Trump ahead of the China summit in Korea, where he posted on social media, a G2 meeting is coming soon. So G7, gone. G7 will remain. I mean, they're not going to really I mean, they're going to still keep the poor Europeans on a hook, but the main thing will shift to a G2 meeting between China and the USA. Trump has revived once failed G2 concept, noting G2 implies recognition of China as a peer competitor of the US. Concerns also raised the G2 framework would exacerbate strategic instability among neighboring countries, multi-global polarization. So countries like India and people are jumping around the block, like Japan and the Quad thing with Philippines, these guys are left hanging, holding the bag now. So they have defense deals with the US. US takes advantage of it, but the US is not going to come and fight for them. Experts argue while emphasizing G2 concept might reduce the direct US-China clashes, it also could shift the financial burden of maintaining deterrence in East Asia onto the allies. So Trump says, you spend your own money to get deterrence against China. I'm out of here. And the reason is multiple studies have shown that in case USA intervenes with all its aircraft carriers, that fight may only last a few hours when China obliterates the American naval fleet. And I mean obliterates in matter of hours. Some studies have shown that. So US may be reading into that, even if they're not totally true, but it's not worth a superpower getting its naval power knocked out of their hand completely. So it's better to go back, focus on your backyard, and then come back later. Hexwell also said the same day allies that fail to fulfill their roles in collective defense must bear the consequences. So if you don't spend enough to deter China, then you face the consequences yourself. Interesting. It signals US security support and policy priorities may vary based upon allies and contributions. The ones who spend money on America, they'll be more supportive. The ones who don't spend money, they won't get much support. So tough. It's tough love, as they call it. Third thing now we get into, before I get into the what our Chief of Defense says, and I think it'll be a good ending to our podcast. CIA ex-officers who come on their podcast, Mr. Bustamante, he has said that Pakistan ISI is far superior to the Indian RAW, and they embed so beautifully inside the Indian society that fantastic intelligence from them, that CIA gets most of its intelligence through the ISI embedded spies over there. And he heads up a podcast called Everyday Spy. He says the real edge of ISIs is human intelligence, lies an ability to embed operatives deep inside Indian society. When he says it provides unparalleled access to information critical for monitoring regional dynamics. That means whatever India does, Pakistan already knows about it. And USA generally likes this to be able to maintain a balance of power. And India has been flapping its independence wing, so it's good to get that information from Pakistan. And they love the intelligence sharing with Pakistan to maintain a balance over there in South Asia. Finally, we get into the part where our UN representative at the United Nations has said, if Afghanistan does not act against the TTP, then we will, under self-defense. Which brings me at the end to what our Chief of Defense Staff has said. Field Marshal Munir, Chief of Defense Force, warned India and Afghanistan of stern consequences in future aggression. He said India should stop harboring any illusions of impunity, saying should attempt to violate Pakistan's sovereignty and integrity, the country's response would be swifter and more severe. DGI Aspire put it another way: swift and brutal. Okay. He was speaking at the newly established Defense Forces headquarters. He emphasized Pakistan will employ every means possible to defend itself and not tolerate any unlawful aggression. He described the concept of Pakistan defense as invincible and underpinned by unwavering resolve of its battle-hardened armed forces and a united nation. In a separately and equally pointed message, our Field Marshal, Chief of Defense Force, Chief of Army Staff, addressed the Taliban government in Afghanistan, stating that Taliban must choose between two paths: either maintain good relations with Pakistan or continue supporting the seditious element of the TTP. So we leave it at that. Taliban are at a crossroads, and India is coming at us with two hands. Hopefully, in the next few day or two or three, we're going to have our next podcast, and I'll give you a better analysis of what the regional dynamics are. And I still repeat, America, Israel will launch an attack. It's a projection, not a prophecy, to eliminate any threat of nuclear threats to them. India will be coming for us after March, April, to even out the odds. They've been taken from geopolitically center stage, and everywhere they went, they were banned and bajas and everything this and Modi this and Rajnath that. Two people are ignoring them. They have to rectify that. And they're doing it by spending billions. Now, I think the hardware declared spending till March, April is 60 billion, but I suspect it's crossing over 100 billion. Some of it we know, some of it we don't. And I'm sure as we go forward, we'll be surprised. Say at the end, it's imperative we get the J-35. It's imperative we get the KJ-500. It's imperative we get HQ-19, the third equivalent of the Chinese. It's imperative we get HQ-29, which takes out the ballistic missiles as soon as they're launched. It's imperative we get the HP-3000, the mass drone killer the Chinese have. And above all, we must get the J-35's ability to take out the MKs before they launch those missiles, 400-kilometer missiles. Thank you. See you in the next podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye and good night. Allah Hafiz.